Mr. President, this week the fate of women's health care rests with the Supreme Court of the United States. In the coming days, the justices are expected to decide whether one activist judge in Texas can single-handedly disregard decades of medical professional consensus, whether he can create chaos for doctors and women seeking abortion, and cut off access to reproductive health care nationwide. Remember when Justice Alito announced that the Dobbs decision would just give each state the authority to regulate abortion? It sounded so simple. 50 different standards for abortion, but each state can make the decision. Well, it's been less than a year since the court's right-wing majority issued that decision overruling Roe versus Wade. Here we are, faced with the very real possibility that mifepristone, a pill, a drug, a medicine the Food and Drug Administration approved more than 20 years ago, could be banned or severely restricted all across the nation. So much for each state's experiment on the issue. This decision would affect the medication nationwide, even in states where abortion has been judged legal. So how do we reach this point? It starts with one federal judge in Texas, Judge Matthew Kacsmaryk, and his original attempt to upend our nation's drug approval process and ban mifepristone. You see, this drug's been on the market for over 20 years, approved by the Food and Drug Administration. This story really reveals the fallacy at the heart of the Dobbs decision. Justice Alito and the right-wing majority claimed that they were just going to settle the controversy over abortion by returning the issue to each state. But in truth, they just replaced controversy with chaos. The Dobbs ruling didn't resolve anything. It merely paved the way for activist judges like Judge Kacsmaryk to impose their radical agenda on everyone else, even in states which have voted to protect the right to abortion. Earlier this month, that's what happened. Judge Kacsmaryk in Amarillo, Texas, defied decades of scientific evidence to revoke the FDA's approval of the medical abortion drug mifepristone. The medication is used in more than half of the abortions in America. It is safe, it is extremely effective. In fact, studies show that it's safer than Tylenol and presents fewer risks than routine medical procedures like colonoscopy. And in the past 20 years, millions of American women have used this drug to terminate an early pregnancy or to help manage a miscarriage with minimal complications. So this attempt to ban this medication isn't grounded in science, and it certainly isn't grounded in any concern about the safety of women. You see, Judge Kacsmaryk is a longstanding, outspoken critic of abortion. Just this weekend, the Washington Post revealed that this very same judge in Amarillo, Texas, failed to disclose to the Senate Judiciary Committee an article that he had co-written criticizing abortion rights when he was nominated to the federal bench. So why exactly did this judge, a known anti-choice radical, end up deciding this case with implications in the entire United States of America? Well, it wasn't a coincidence, believe me. On the contrary, it was a classic case of judge shopping. That's when plaintiffs game the legal system to bring their case before a favorable judge. In this case, the plaintiffs, a group of right-wing MAGA activists, filed a lawsuit challenging the FDA's approval of mifepristone in the Amarillo division of the Northern District of Texas. Under the district court's rules, all cases filed in the Amarillo division are assigned to one judge. You can guess his name, Judge Kacsmaryk. So these right-wing activists knew if they filed an anti-abortion lawsuit in Amarillo, their case would be decided by a friendly judge who shares their views, and his ruling would have an impact not just on Amarillo and Texas, but the entire United States of America. Well, the plaintiffs got exactly what they wanted. Judge Kacsmaryk delivered. The scheme worked. He delivered the biggest blow to reproductive rights since last year's Dobbs decision. So much for each state making a decision. His decision didn't return this issue to the states. It replaced the will of the people in the states with this judge's point of view. By attempting to ban mifepristone nationwide, the judge tried to impose new national restrictions on abortion that have no basis in science and are extremely dangerous. Now there have been a number of developments in this case over the past week, and as a result, the Supreme Court will take up the issue of abortion again, twice in less than 1 year. This lawsuit against mifepristone is only the latest example of the never-ending chaos and confusion women and medical professions have experienced since the Supreme Court threw out Roe versus Wade. All across America, activist judges and right-wing lawmakers are working hand in hand to impose increasingly onerous restrictions on reproductive care, and they won't stop until abortion is banned in every form in every part of the country. It's not about each state deciding it at all. Of course, there's only one reason this relentless assault has accelerated: the Dobbs decision. By erasing a constitutional right that had been on the books for 50 years, the right-wing majority opened the floodgates for new laws and new rulings, and even criminalizing abortion. And the laws seem to be changing almost every week. Doctors have no idea if the care they provide today will be legal tomorrow. Recently, Florida decided that they would not allow pregnancies to be terminated after 6 weeks of pregnancy. It's just a fact of life, and every person knows it, that it usually takes much more than 6 weeks for a woman to be certain that she's pregnant. So instead of ending the debate on abortion, the Dobbs decision has really opened a different debate. How far will we let this brand of political radicalism go? Look at how these attacks on reproductive health care have escalated. First, the Supreme Court overturned decades of legal precedent to revoke a constitutional right. That's the first time that's ever happened in the history of the Supreme Court, revoking an established constitutional right. Now, less than a year later, one judge in Texas has decided to escalate the situation. He wants to take drug approval decisions out of the hands of doctors and scientific experts at the FDA and violate decades of congressional and agency precedent. So naturally, the American people are wondering, what's next? How far will the right-wing extremists go in destabilizing our lives and the rule of law? What's next? Birth control? Vaccines? Medicine for HIV/AIDS? It's a genuine question. Just ask healthcare providers in Illinois who are wondering if they're going to face criminal charges for providing vital and potentially life-saving care. Let me tell you about one of them. Her name is Andrea Gallegos. She operates a clinic in Carbondale. She opened her clinic last October after the Dobbs decision. She wanted to provide resources to women traveling from other states. True, today, roughly 95% of her patients travel from outside of Illinois. She tells us that the recent rulings on mifepristone have created chaos. Every day she receives calls from terrified parents who are wondering if they will even be able to receive care. The question she hears the most is, will someone come after me if I ask for assistance? And while Andrea tries her best to reassure her patients, the truth is she's even struggling to understand the state of the law in America. She says chaos and confusion are putting pregnant women even more at risk. Andrea and her patients are living with the real-world consequences of anti-choice radicalism, and it shows how the Dobbs opinion is entirely detached from reality. Andrea said the Dobbs decision did not resolve any controversy. It forced pregnant women to flee their homes for health care. It has forced citizens of this country to become medical refugees in their own states. And it has forced health care providers to put their patients in dangerous, potentially life-threatening situations. She said the Dobbs decision goes against what we usually stand for in America, a person's fundamental right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are the words of a healthcare professional trying to operate within the law and wondering as it changes by the week. If Dobbs returned the question of abortion back to the states, what about my state? What about their elected leaders? Our voters spoke, our leaders took action to reflect their will to strengthen access to abortion. So why is one judge in Amarillo, Texas, have the last word when it comes to medical abortions in my state or any other state? This war on women's health care has gone too far. That's why the Senate needs to do its job. Stop the chaos. return and establish the Roe versus Wade woman's right to choose once and for all by passing the Women's Health Protection Act. In the meantime, here's what Senate Democrats are doing. I joined 49 of my Senate colleagues in filing an amicus brief to the Supreme Court, urging them to immediately overturn the Amarillo decision, banning and restricting access to mifepristone. Additionally, in the coming weeks, the Senate Judiciary Committee, which I chair, will hold a hearing on the state of abortion rights. This will be a follow-up to the hearing we held last year immediately after the Dobbs decision. We've learned what happens when you revoke a constitutional right from the American people. We can never let this happen again. We need to respect the rights of women to make this choice, to make their own health care decisions, and to do it in consultation with medical professionals, doctors and medical professionals who are not living in fear that they're going to be imprisoned by making the right medical decision. And Democrats won't rest until we restore access to these constitutional rights nationwide. Mr. President, I yield the floor.